Okay, well, I've got 7 o'clock, so let's call this APC meeting to order. Roll call, Mike Gorman. Mike Gorman.
He's there.
It works if I click the button that says unmute. Here.
Right. Seth McCormick.
Here.
Nita Remages.
Here.
Mike Johnston.
Here.
And everybody, I want to introduce Doug Beeler. He's the new member. He replaces his wife, Kathleen. So Doug Beeler.
Welcome, Doug.
Here. Thank you.
I'm here. Cool. Anybody have a problem with the minutes from last month's meeting?
Who's absent, Bob?
Mary Lou.
Hey, Bob, who's absent?
I'm sorry, Mary Lou. Mary Lou's not here. I'm sorry, I missed Mary Lou. She was on the next line. Yeah, she had a medical procedure today, so she may not be here. So Mary Lou is absent.
My only question was that Doug was put on the board. Is that something that you want? I know we didn't do it with Mike Johnstone. I looked back at the minutes. Is that something you want reflected in the minutes, Bob, or that's just an appointment that you make?
It was an appointment that I made at the last town council meeting, so he can just be listed as on the roll call.
Okay,
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
I make a motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Old business, the proposed amendment / restatement of the shoreline protection ordinance. And then we all recently got a version from Chris Willoughby. I guess, we've gone through this a number of times. Let's do this. Let's go through it and then we can kind of have general comments. And I've made a copy. I've got, 13 pages long. And
It's I've got 22 pages.
Mine as well.
okay, well, yeah, I guess it just depends what your printer does. All right.
Well,
Like I say, I don't know what your system does because it always definitely
It's
changes.
always screwed up, yeah. Okay, well, you know what? Let's just refer to the numbers then as we go through it. I'll kind of go through what I've gotten, and if I get ahead of anybody who wants to comment on things, let me know, and I'll stop, and then they can make their comments. In terms of definition of, it had the titles, starting with the titles. 154.207. Instead of saying emergency repairs, I think we should just say emergencies, because later on.
wait, are you on definitions or did you jump into the middle of the document?
The titles.
I am on titles.
Titles.
Yeah.
What are what?
Well, there's actually a small that changed before titles.
Do you have? Okay, go ahead.
And to paragraph 1, where it's listing the titles, right now it reads the last kind of paraphrase, the last phrase is now reads as follows, which would be 1 now. It's split by the marked out.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Cool. Okay.
Where does that say that?
It actually says it now is now restated in its entirety and shall now read as follows. I guess that's fine, but I think we only need one of the nows.
I only show one. So, I do. I see. You know what? It's hidden by a blue underline, and I'm not sure. But yep, I got you.
Okay. So going down to 154.207, I think instead of emergency repairs, we should just say emergencies, because in the section on emergency repairs, we talk about both repairing and building new seawalls. So I think saying repairs is probably not correct. And so if you go back and look at 154.207 in the body of the document, you can see what I just said. Do we want to talk about that, or are we good with that?
I'm good.
Okay. I am to delineate definitions, delineation consultant.
I'm sorry, where are you, Bob? What number?
Definitions, delineation consultant.
Oh, okay.
Section
Yeah,
on
I
definitions.
guess my only issue here is that did we ever locate the Army Corps of Engineers delineation consultants list?
I spoke with the Army Corps of Engineers. They have no list. So therefore, I think we should just leave out that from the Army Corps of Engineers. They don't have a list.
Okay.
And then underneath that, and so I think if we want to delete from the Army Corps of Engineers, Chris, you see where I'm talking there?
Yep, I'm with you. I'm typing the changes as we speak.
Okay, and then in the section on emergency, it says a situation that requires immediate action. I think we should say an unexpected or unanticipated, and I don't care which of those words we want to put in there, but I don't want people ignoring a problem, and then all of a sudden coming to us and say it's emergency, and then they get special treatment because, quote, it's an emergency all of a sudden. Everybody with me on that, or comments?
At the end of the day, though, what special treatment are they getting? I mean,
They're getting
expedited
treatment, right?
That's true.
But an emergency is yeah, I don't know. That's a tough scenario.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how tough to be on that. What do the rest of you think?
Well, let's read it in the context of the rest of it.
And Bob, as we're talking about that, the statute is going to trump us regardless on terms of dictating of what we have to do to consider. So us making changes, what we did in June of 2020 was to accommodate and incorporate the language from the legislature, right? And so let's say someone did ignore it. I'm playing devil's advocate with you. They didn't have the money. They didn't feel like spending the money, whatever the case is. Those are heavy expenditures. But regardless, by state statute, you have time frames that you have to consider them in.
Okay, maybe we're just looking for trouble with that. Okay.
Wait, before you move on, just go back up to delineation consultant. What are we doing, Chris Willoughby, with your note at the end of that?
Well, so I've put notes throughout this to make sure, I think Seth has brought up several times, and this is just a reminder before we do the final, is to make sure that we account for these and that we have a reference and that they're available, as to Seth's point, wherever we can electronically. So there's hyperlinks to them, one, and two, available in the clerk's office, whatever that takes. So that is, by the time if the commission's inclination is to set something for hearing and put this in a more quote unquote final form, the expectation is that we'd have all the links and make sure that we have all of those. So where you see those throughout, Mike, that's the purpose of that, is just to remind us that we need to make sure that we have all of them.
So if we move this document on towards a public hearing, then you will take care of that note?
Yes, I will work with Dr. LeMay. I didn't necessarily have I don't think the core of these documents from when this initially occurred, but yes, the whole point is to make sure that, as we go down, I verified that some of the hyperlinks that we cited here are the actual sites, the actual pages that are in here. But yes, to answer your question directly, I will.
Yeah, they're all downloaded onto my iPad. So at worst, I can make copies of them and make sure the clerk's office has them.
Yeah, but just but in reference to this specific one, Mike, there used to be a list that the Army Corps of Engineers provided in each region that was a list of delineation consultants that they had pre-approved. These links were cited in all sorts of different, like, wetland management white papers, for lack of a better term. And if you go and click on the link now, it's not there. And you can, so they no longer maintain this list. And I think we were referencing that we either wanted a reference to the statute or a reference to the Army Corps of Engineers list of delineation consultants. And now we've established that they don't maintain one. So this can be removed.
Yeah.
As far as the delineation consultant list.
Well, there's other documents I think that Chris Willoughby's referencing. There's the manual of survey instructions. There's the manual and regulatory guidance on blank. So there's other things.
Agreed. But I'm saying I think this note arose based on a previous list that was published by the Army Corps of Engineers. I agree that a link to all of those other documents should be included, but with regard to the Army Corps of Engineers list of delineation consultants, it can be removed because it doesn't.
Right. No, then I don't think we're talking about that anymore. We all seem to agree with you. So that sounds good. Chris will take care of the links. Okay.
Okay, so I'm down to 154.203. And underneath that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are all crossed off. And then we start again with 1, 2, 3, and under 3, a new seawall may only be installed between a revetment and the principal use structure. Some of these lots don't have a principal use structure, so we should probably say if one exists on the lot.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm missing. You're in number 3 that's not crossed out?
Yes. A new seawall may only be installed.
Okay, nope, I don't see that.
Yeah, it's further down. I had to look a little bit too, Seth, as you go, because there were a couple versions of this in the original green. So it's on page.
Okay, no, I see. Okay, I was looking at the red. I'm now looking at the green. Okay.
I'm colorblind. It all looks the same to me.
Okay. So.
You're at a disadvantage, Bob.
I am. You should see me out trying to bird. Anybody have any issues with that?
No.
Just from my perspective, it changes it dramatically. So I just want to make sure I'm on the same page, because that, and I'm not saying that's a wrong change. I'm not giving an opinion on, it's dramatically from what was in the original, right, in 2018.
Yep. Right, but we do have to recognize we have some lots that don't have structures on them, and I think we have to let people protect those with the ordinance.
So
go ahead.
So Bob, then I understand what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying, but if a lot has no structure on it, where can the seawall be placed?
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be lakeward of 106.6,
So,
and it has to be behind the natural ordinary high water mark.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
All right. So.
Okay, so this is just really a grammatical thing. 154.204.
Hold on one second.
Wait.
Okay.
Stay on 203.
Okay.
Keep going down. We were on paragraph number 3.
Yep.
Go down to paragraph number 5.
Okay.
The slope of any revetment shall be, and then there's 2 numerical references there. One has a colon in it. The other one has 2 colons in it. Do you see what I'm talking about there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that should be, the second one should be 1.5 and then colon 1.
Okay, so that second one is incorrect.
Yep.
Okay, And then I have a question on number 6, paragraph number 6. We had a lot of discussion about this at the February meeting. This now says the height of a protection structure shall not exceed the height determined to be necessary by the coastal engineer. We had a lot of discussion concerning the existing grade. Okay, the last time I took part in this discussion on this, and we're moving away from that. This is what it had initially when the APC and the town council adopted it, which should not exceed the existing grade. If we're going to go to the height of a protection structure determined by the coastal engineer, then I would propose that we add after that, and subject to the approval of the building commission. And I talked about this before. I'm not comfortable allowing a coastal engineer hired by a property owner to tell the town how high a protection structure needs to be without any oversight by the building commission.
Sure. No, I think that's reasonable. And, you know, the building commission always has the option to hire their own coastal engineer at the expense of the person requesting the permit.
Well, no, I know that, but I'm just talking about this one sentence.
I'm good with that.
So what I would propose to add, Chris Willoughby, is, or you can add it anywhere in here, but at the end there, after the word coastal engineer, I would just say, and subject to the approval of the building commission.
Can we add, because I think that we're probably somewhere in between by definition, because this is the building commission and or BZA, right? As subject to the approval by the building commission in accordance with this ordinance, does that make sense? Because okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I want some oversight by the town. So yeah, I'm good with however you think that should read, Chris.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to nitpick it too much. But should we say a coastal engineer as opposed to the coastal engineer? Or reference the building commission's right to hire a coastal engineer to kind of gut check or provide an opinion related to like the possibility for competing coastal engineers.
Yeah, I think we say that in the ordinance at another place.
You say it right below there, Bob, in paragraph 8.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, then we don't. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Good.
So I would like to see, Chris, you add in the language which you just referenced.
All right, done.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm down to 154.205. And this is just tiny, but number 5, in there you've got a 4 after the 5. I think it just didn't get taken out.
4 after the 5.
You got 5 period, and then it's got a tiny 4 after it.
Where are you at, Bob? Requirements?
Heavy equipment access.
Oh, wait. Heavy. Oh, so you're heavy equipment. And where is that at?
That is in 154.205, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's the 5.
I guess I'm not seeing his page the way he's reading that. Are you, Chris Wilby? Can you help us out?
It's just above 154.205 protection structure.
Yep.
Oh, above it.
You're sorry. You said you were in 205. Sorry about that. Okay.
I'm in 204. I'm sorry.
So Bob, and just so I have notes, if you think above to repaginate. So some of these corrections have been so many that the formatting, if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, if I were to I crossed out paragraph 5 or 4 above.
Yep.
If I did
want it
that
to be 4.
That's going to be a 4. That 5 will be deleted, but somehow it didn't delete. So
got it. Okay. Yep.
People have skills may be on me, but I do have a note in there.
No problem. Okay. Now I'm at 154.205. So,
I've got a typo towards the beginning in under requirements number 4
yep,
about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about the 7th line, the property owner, and then I think that a applicant needs to come out of there.
or should it be, I looked at that too, or should it be / applicant?
Well, I think we were trying to be consistent. So that one, in my mind, what we were doing is crossing out applicant and just having property owner. It doesn't matter to me whichever you'd use, but we were using them interchangeably.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's the property owner, right? So it doesn't matter. It's really your collective preference.
Well, the next line, you've crossed out the word applicant, so that's where I'm going with that, and just stick with the word owner.
Okay.
Yeah,
So forget applicant. I'm fine with that.
There's one in the next sentence too where you need to. All right.
But I'm on number 6 right there, requirements number 6.
Yep.
Let me ask a logistical question here. 6A, an original and 5 copies. Okay, why 5 copies?
For every member of the building commission.
That's why I asked that question. There's 6 people on the building commission.
That did change since this original one. That's right.
Okay.
So actually, what I would suggest you put in here is an original and 7 copies, unless you want more. I mean, 7, I get at 7 by you need 6 for the building commission members, and there ought to be a copy sitting in the town clerk's office. I mean, the original goes in the building commission permanent file, whoever maintains the permanent file. So then I would request an original and 7 copies.
That's good. I'm fine with that.
And then continuing on in A, in the 3rd line, it says it's certified by a coastal engineer. You can delete with Great Lakes experience because the definition of the word coastal engineer includes the Great Lakes experience.
Yep. And below that on B, it says what the site plan has to have. I think the site plan also should include any existing structures on the property. It's just making the list a little more complete. And that's in B.
Makes sense?
Okay. I go down to 8 at this point, and the only thing there.
Let me call to Chris's attention there. You got another one of those notes here at the end of B. So I don't know what you're intending to do with that.
Well, we want to make sure. This is where I think we got into the discussion of using Army Corps of Engineer, right, in their determination and what the town code says and the definition. I think.
Well, I think we've resolved all that with a lot of discussion, and it's been reflected in this draft and prior drafts in the definitions in the beginning. The Army Corps of Engineer 485 is for jurisdictional purposes, and the natural ordinary high water mark is for private public property determination and for town jurisdiction.
And there was one other section too of just making sure that our definition matches what is defined in the code now. So these will be resolved. That note just exists for that to make sure that we're as a reminder that everything, just like we're finding tonight, we've looked at this thing several times and we're correcting things that were from the 2020 version. So
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'm down to 8 additional requirements, and this is again just housekeeping. The lettering is wrong there. We crossed off A, so we need to change the other letters.
Yep.
Now I'm down to 154.206. And there's an A there, and I don't think we need an A anymore because it is the only letter we would have, and that doesn't make much sense. So I think that just should be a paragraph. We could cross off A.
It's crossed out on everybody else's version.
Yeah, it's crossed out in a lighter, it's blue. Yep, but it is crossed out.
Okay. Then in that paragraph, so will not be located likeward in the existing structure and a landward.
Bob, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, you changed, aimed this thing a little different. It says will not be located lakeward of the existing structure and can be landward as close as reasonably practical to the primary use structure. Instead of can, I would say will be landward and as close as reasonably practical to the primary use structure.
So you would add the words and will?
Will, but, and again, and this is kind of brings up a little bit of a, and I think we need to decide what we want to do with this. So if somebody's got a backyard that's got a, say, swimming pool, we've got one of those, we've got a few of those. Does that then mean that they can't protect their swimming pool in their backyard? Because that's what that would mean. So I think we need to decide what we want to do with that.
Well, you remember, you got the words in there reasonably practical.
Right.
So if there's a swimming pool, does that get taken into account under the phrase reasonably practicable?
Well, yeah, it's practicable. The swimming pool's just going to fall in the lake, you know? I mean, I just don't know. I don't know how to.
It's not reasonable, though. Yeah. I mean, I think it must be landward. Also will not be located there. I mean, why do we have lakeward and landward? Why not just take can be landward out? Located lakeward of the existing structure will not be located lakeward of the existing structure and must be as close as reasonably practical to the primary structure.
That's a good point, Seth.
Yep, you're right. Mm-hmm. So we could actually get rid of landward.
Mm-hmm.
And do we want it to be as close as reasonably practical? So I'm thinking about somebody who's got a gazebo in their backyard. In fact, I can think about somebody who's got a gazebo in their backyard that I argued against at the BZA before I got into government. And so because somebody put a gazebo in their backyard, they get to protect their backyard, but somebody who just has backyard with grass doesn't get to protect it. That doesn't seem right.
We're also going to have a bunch of building permits for gazebos right next to the.
Well, yeah, we're kind of encouraging that to happen if that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I mean, reasonably practical, I think, is subjective, right? So it's going to have to be left to the building commission's discretion. You know, I mean, in my mind, something like a pool would be protectable, and something like a gazebo maybe wouldn't. But I'm just thinking off the top of my head as opposed to giving it much more in-depth thought.
Is that inviting a lawsuit down the road?
I mean, I think it depends on the standard that is applied by the building commission.
Well, so let's talk in general. I mean, I know what's the harm in, from your perspectives of what you're trying to do here.
Well, I know, like
there, that so will not be located lakeward of the existing structure.
Yep, I know, like I'm catching a lot of grief from my wife about the fact that the seawalls that replaced the failing seawalls between 22 and 23 were put as close as possible to the failing seawall. And she'd like to say that those seawalls should have been as close as possible to the houses. I don't agree with her, but that's what I'm
disagree
hearing.
with you. Your wife's right.
There you go. Okay, well then the swimming pool goes in the lake. You know, I mean that's what we need to come to grips with.
I don't know that that's reality, though. If the seawalls are there and you're allowing the repair, right, replacement, I mean, it's not going lakeward for sure.
No, it's going landward.
So going landward, but that is all. They're not going to expand from there, right? I mean, I guess theoretically, it's a dramatic example, but they could roll the dice and they take the structure down, and then in great times that land and ordinary high water mark expands what would be there quite a bit, right? I mean, conceivably. So, right now where that seawall exists, everything south of that is conceivably what they're enjoying. So to go close enough to the primary structure, I guess at the end of the day, you just have to consider what are you trying to, what is your goal here?
Well, and I mean, at the end of the day, it may be a situation now where you contemplate that existing, I'm going to call it a structure, but it's not, like a gazebo, a swimming pool, something that exists as of right now. There's the potential for that to be protected, subject to the discretion of the building commission. But anybody who wants to build a swimming pool or gazebo now has to demonstrate that even though that's on their seawall, their existing seawall, it can't be lakeward of the ordinary high water mark. That would require amending another ordinance, though.
Does it help if we put after the end of as close as reasonably practical to the primary use structure, something to the effect of taking into account the existing permanent structures or improvements?
Yeah, somebody said everybody's going to want to build gazebos, but you know what? They're not going to be able to do that because most of those lots are small and their percent lot coverage isn't going to allow it.
Well, and 106 is going to apply, right? I mean,
Yep.
There's just varying. It seems to me that there are constraints in there that might address that, but I don't.
Yep.
Let me just interject a little thought here, some background on where this section came from. I mean, personally, I like telling someone push it as close to the structure as we can, and that's what this is saying. But this exception was heavily debated and negotiated, if you will, in 2018 when the Shore Protection Ordinance was adopted. And Chris will remember this and Bob will remember this. And this is dealing with, as it says in the first two lines, repair or replacement of a legal existing protection structure. This was addressing residents' concerns that, hey, I have a seawall there. I want to be able to replace that seawall if something happens to it. Because there was some doubt when this drafting was going on as to how existing seawalls were going to be treated. So now, if we're going to tell somebody you can repair an existing seawall, but you got to push it close to the building as you can, that was not the intent in 2018. You understand what I'm talking about, Bob and Chris?
Yeah, in fact, I think we told those people, yeah, you're going to be able to replace what you have.
Right. So telling them now that they have to, and I'm not saying we can't change this, and maybe I like this language, but in the beginning, that wasn't the intent of this. So, I mean,
the statute says, that's what the Indiana statute says, is as close as reasonably practical.
To what?
To the existing structure.
Oh, I don't know what, to
the primary structure.
It's been a long time. Well, then it's been a long time since I read that. But if it says that, and Chris is saying that that's good and we can do that, then I'm all in favor of saying push it as close to the structure as you can. I'm just trying to bring out a little background for us to be aware of and where this section came from in the beginning. I mean, if you just stick with where it came from in the beginning, you would say you can't be lakeward of your existing structure, and you have to obviously be within the natural ordinary high water mark, and that's good. That's it. But if you're telling me, and I'm sorry, I have not looked at that statute recently. I didn't look at it before this call. If you're telling me that there is another rule which says, oh, wait a second, if you're going to replace an existing structure, it has to be located close to the primary structure, then I like that. Then good, let's go with it. Chris, is that correct?
I do not know that language offhand, but I am.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that statute either.
Well, I know what
Okay.
Seth was referring to, but I don't recall the context of that at the moment, and I don't have it in front of me here anywhere. So,
And I can.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we research that statute? And if there is language like that in the statute, we can leave it and make sure when we bring it back next month, we have it in there. If there's not existing language like that, then let's just make sure it's landward of the existing seawall. Does that sound reasonable?
sounds reasonable to me.
No, it's got to be landward and above the NOHWM.
That's here, Chris.
Yes.
Seth, that's what this says. It has to be. It has to
we're
be
good with
lakeward
that.
of the natural ordinary high water mark. So that is in there. That's small c.
All right.
Now I would, if we're looking at small c right now, I would delete everything after the NOHWM. I will delete the as demonstrated in the permit application, because that's all, you go back to definitions now. You go back to definitions of national ordinary high water mark and so forth. So we don't need this language of, you need a characteristics stated in the definition. So I think that's just redundant at that point.
Yeah, let's shorten this thing up.
All right, so this is over to Chris Willoughby to decide which way this should read based on the statute.
Yep. Everybody
Okay.
good?
So while we're here, making sure, so this note at the bottom of reconciling things, and so language from the code and Title 14, and this is the definition used in the code. I don't know.
Which is what, the same as the Gunnarsson definition?
It does mirror that.
Yeah. So I mean, so where's the debate here?
I don't know that we use that same language in our definition. So that's my point. If we go up, I just want to make that's what that note is for, is to make sure that our language mirrors.
Well, you've got the language in the definition of natural ordinary high water mark. I have it on page 5 of the copy I'm looking at here, but I have no problem in however you phrase it. It's there may be a word or two different or something, but it's the same.
Yeah.
Same as far as I'm
I think
concerned.
we should mirror, right? At the end of the day, we can make it more. We need to match that so that we got any confusion. But that's why that note's there, in case that comes up.
All right.
Okay. Mine goes down to 154.206.1 stairs. And under B, the second sentence in B is stairs over dunes on properties without seawalls. I think we should add or revetments are permissible. So in other words, if you've got a seawall or revetment, you can't put a stairs over it.
What do you?
If you leave it dunes, then you can put stairs down over your dunes.
Should it say shore protection structures then?
We could do that, or really seawalls and revetments are the shore protection structures.
Is that what we're doing at stop 21 though? Aren't we putting stairs over the wall that's there?
Yeah, but we're the town.
Okay, I just
I
want
mean,
to be sure.
we're doing that as a, and
Okay.
maybe we need to put that in our ordinance, that the town is allowed to do that at stops. Chris, do we need to do that?
Well, I think you're going to get a lot of blowback and push for that. So what does that mean? I mean, the town getting to do that.
How about we just preface that sentence with the exception of the beach stops? I mean, we're doing that as a public service. I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have to have safe public access points. Huh?
Yep, absolutely. So maybe that's a good point. Maybe we should preface that with the exception of the town beach stops.
Right.
That is a good point. Any reason we can't do that?
Not based on that, but I took a note to make sure that I consider that a little bit more before
Okay.
vision of this. Because Doug's point's well taken. I mean, in terms of the public service and the access to
Yep.
the beach. So.
Yep. Okay, so I'll let you think about that and maybe bring it back however you think we ought to do that next meeting. And then 154.207, this was emergency repairs. Again, I'd like to switch that to just emergencies instead of emergency repairs.
Oh, yep, I already switched that earlier. Okay.
And then as of July 1st, 2020, I think we just want to put the date this ordinance gets passed in there, right?
We don't need any date in there.
Okay, we could get rid of that too.
So
that's true, we don't.
keep going down in that you have A and then you have 1, 2, 3. In number 2, I'll be the one to address how many copies, how many copies do you want?
Yep.
Okay. Because if you continue reading down, it says the emergency permit shall be given to all members, the clerk shall give it to all members of the building commission. So now we're up to 6 building commissioners. We're up to the town clerk should have one. So I mean, I guess we're back to 7 copies, right?
Yep.
Original plus 7.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
I don't mean to be silly about copies here, but you know.
Yeah, no.
You're right. And some of those really just carried over from the original, because the building commission, the makeup of the building commission changed since the original. So no, those make sense.
Okay. And then going down to B, and this is talking about notification of the town when somebody wants to submit an emergency permit application. I think the thought is we want an email notification going out on the town clerk's blast email, probably with a link, not a link, but a attachment so that people can study that in detail. At the same time, we want it to be posted on the website. However, at the same time, we want to make sure that that doesn't get sent out until it is a completed application, because I can guarantee we're going to get applications that are not going to have everything that we want. We're going to get applications that are not true emergencies, and I don't want somebody to have to, from the town, having to send these things out just because somebody's pulling their chain. So I think the timing we have to get right. We have to maybe have the building commissioner review it, make sure it's complete before it is sent out by any of those means.
So does it, if we put in B, the main portion before it says town clerk shall, would it help us say and upon receiving direction from the building commissioner?
That would
No,
be good. Well,
No, like this has to be, if anything, what you're trying to do here is you're trying to notify everybody as soon as reasonably practicable, or promptly upon the receipt of a complete application. So if there's any determination whatsoever, it should be solely that he has received a complete application, and then that triggers it. Because what you're trying to do is we're trying to comply with a 10-day deadline. So upon the receipt of a complete application, that triggers the 10-day deadline by which the building commission has to act. And part of that is public notice. So there can't be like a lull of 3 days, even if they receive it Friday at 5 p.m. Like the moment they make a determination that the application is complete, they need to promptly comply with the notice ordinance or the notice provisions. Because you can lose a lot of days over a weekend. You can lose a lot of days, by just like here, go post this on the website. Like it needs to be very quickly. So I don't know that we can clarify the language to be like upon receipt of a complete application, but that needs to not be 3 days after the application was received, right?
how about on the receipt of a completed application in the case of a true emergency?
Well, I think that you're trying to, just plain devil's advocate here. I think you're trying to cover all bases here, but part of it may be that, let's say that a concerned citizen doesn't agree with it. One of the things they're going to remonstrate is that Larry could determine it is emergency, right? But others that may be part of what they show up to a public meeting and remonstrate against, as it's not a true emergency.
Well, I agree, but there's provisions in there the building commission can decide there's not an emergency, and that could be based on public hearing as well.
That too, right? And so going back to Seth's point, I don't think it matters whether it's truly an emergency, it's not an emergency. Our overriding point with this section was to comply with the state mandates and to get the information disseminated as quickly as possible. So from what you're saying, it being a true emergency, getting that info out, let's say that info is disseminated and then it's determined it's not an emergency, right? That's a result that you're trying to avoid, Dr. LeMay?
Yeah, I don't want people to be pulling the chain of the town clerk and building commissioner.
Well, and Bob is also addressing an application that's not complete.
Yep.
Bob sees too many applications which aren't complete.
If you're going to tweak it, like the only thing you can tweak is complete. I mean, you can't add in true emergency because we're not going to be able to make that determination. Like this needs to be a situation where if you receive, because it's basically a checklist, right? Are all of these things present? If so, it's a complete application, in which case, like the notice needs to be almost immediate, right?
But all these homeowners think their situation's an emergency, Seth.
Well, no, I understand that, but that's something you have to deal with. I mean, then put some sort of penalty in there for submitting a BS emergency application. You can't cut off the rest of the community's notice just because you're overwhelmed by people lying to you about an emergency. I mean, that's not the town's fault, and the issue's too important to not go through the hoops of notifying people that an application has been submitted.
How about if we make the clock start on the 10 days from the time the town posts it then?
Because that's not within the spirit of the statute.
Yeah, it's when it's completed, right? That was our check and balance with that, was making sure it's completed, and the 10 days starts when a completed application. So maybe we just add that language, completed in accordance with the requirements of this section. Does that address what everybody?
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is there's procedures in place where you receive everything by a PDF. This is not crazy onerous. And if if there's a determination that there's no emergency, then you just pull it.
Well, yeah, and that's what we say. We in fact state that if the building commission determines that it wasn't a true emergency, we adjourn and it gets dealt with at the next regular meeting.
Yeah.
So I guess we probably can't get around the fact that everybody thinks they have an emergency.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we can until they've been shot down enough that there's no emergency. They're not going to be able to cram this down people's throat. But the notice, it's a due process concern and it's a concern for the town to be notified when somebody's going to do something or proposing to do something that jeopardizes, essentially the public trust. It's too important to wait for any longer than you have to provide notice to everybody.
Okay. Let's go with that. You okay with that, Chris?
Yep, I think
so. Last comment I had.
Let me ask for just one point for procedure on that. We're looking at this B1, this notify the building commission of the submission that the building commission can provide notice. Who actually is the one that is going to provide the notice with the links and put it on the website? It's the town clerk, correct?
Our town clerk doesn't put stuff on the website, so the town clerk will have to send it to Meg.
Yeah, I think that's where the rub was, the discussions before of putting more on the town clerk, not who's going to post that. So if your point is to more clearly define who's responsible here, right now it's the building commission, but is there a key holder? I guess I defer to Dr. LeMay on that.
Yeah, that was my question, Chris. Is the building commission capable of doing this? So,
and that's that's liable to be problematic in that our building commissioner's health isn't the best. My thought was that I would make sure that happens, but on the other hand, if I go on vacation, it may not happen as timely as everybody's hoping. And that's the problem is our building commissioner, other than the building commissioner, are all volunteers. So it's kind of like, how much do they need to be on the clock,
Well, your building commissioner, maybe I'm misspeaking, but he isn't posting notices, right? I mean, it's either you or it's Meg Collins, the secretary, or...
Well, and we could ask the deputy clerk to forward these permit applications to Meg Collins to post. That might be the best way. She's a salaried employee.
Well, that's for you. Yeah, you need to decide that, but you got to put the burden on somebody who can do it.
Yeah, and she's there almost all the time. So maybe we make it clear that the deputy clerk will make sure it gets sent out in this mass email and forward to, and make sure it's posted on the website, which she could send to Meg Collins.
I should say that, and I'm not sure what Meg's official position is she the secretary of the building commission?
She is she is just basically taken over the website.
No, but I mean the building commission. Who takes your minutes?
Building commissioner writes the minutes out.
Okay. So you're going to have to, otherwise it can say the building commission, shall cause, and the building commission's responsible. So if a ball is dropped, it's the building commission. But at the end of the day, there has to be a key holder for that.
Well, it sounds to me like maybe deputy clerk could be the best one to forward this emergency application. And actually, you know what? She's in a pretty good position to determine what applications are complete or not. She's been down this road before. So I think, maybe she does that with the help of the building commission. She can always pick up the phone and call me or Joe or Larry for that matter. But yeah, I think deputy clerk is probably the place to put the buck stops here label. I can check with her and see, but I don't know how that'll go over. But I think that's something we can do. That sound okay to everybody?
Sounds okay to me.
Okay.
I think you should probably check, because that seems to be when we were originally discussing these changes, that was an issue of the clerk's office being responsible for sending those notices.
Yep.
And putting things out there, and whether the email lists were correct, etc. So I've taken notes on that, but I definitely think it's something you want to run past them to check reality.
I can do that. I'll circle that on my list and I'll check on that tomorrow. Okay. My last comment was in 154.208B, talking about the costs of all this stuff. I believe that's all stated somewhere else in the ordinance. We don't need to repeat it.
Wow, that's an original inclusion there. So we're,
Well, where is it stated elsewhere?
Gosh, this is a long document. Everybody want to look?
Yeah, Bob's right. It's stated
Yeah.
in a number of spots.
What is it? Okay.
This is pretty damn clear, though, where it's right here. I mean, is there any harm in leaving this? I know we were saying don't be redundant, don't say things twice.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I just that was just something I noticed when I went through it.
I mean, I'm all for getting rid of redundancies, but we need to make sure that it's not stated specifically. And I mean, I don't see this language anywhere. I'm controlling for the word costs.
yeah, I don't think all of this direct, but I believe when it gives the options, it isn't this directly stated other places.
This is very direct. We should leave it where it's at.
I'm fine with that.
Go back up. We list all the ordinances that should be considered.
Yep.
Chris, in Chapter 154, Appendix A, that should be R2 in the R2 zoning district. Because R2 is Lakeshore Drive. You were obviously talking about Lakeshore Drive properties here.
Good point.
You got that?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Anybody got anything else they want to add or change or delete? Good. Okay, so Chris, we can maybe bring this back.
Wait. Chris has another one of his notes here. Towards the end, he says fines remain an issue for discussion. Chris, is there something that needs to be discussed? Are you okay?
Well, I am okay. This point has been raised at previous meetings and initially when Dr. LeMay and John Wall and I were looking at something. So I'm all right as it reads. It's just been a topic of discussion and whether there should be more teeth in this ordinance violation. And so here's an example, and I think partially because this isn't probably as an intensive as fine. Sorry, I'm looking at so that's for interference with the dune, right? And so if you look above, the fines are more exorbitant compared to that one. I'm all right if you guys are all right with that amount. Should we mirror them to something else? The intention of those above were to reach statutory maximums. So I leave that to you guys. It's just, I noted that because it came up before and it remains there because it didn't seem to be resolved or discussed again.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, there is no more heinous a crime than plowing down dunes. Maybe that fine should be $1,000 a day to be consistent with what's above.
I agree with you, Bob. I think we've all seen it happen, and by the time you get the video or you get somebody down there, it's halfway done. They're done. So, I don't know. At least 1,000.
Well, and if you note above, I mean, it does.
It does.
On 2,500 and then 7,500. Those mirror the maximum. So.
I go at least. I'm with Bob. I think 250 is nothing. It's nothing. 1,000 may not be nothing if you're hiring bulldozers or something to come and get the job done at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we've seen it.
I'm good with putting it at 1,000, but just for clarity's sake, this is not a one-time fine.
No, right. Daily.
It's a daily fine, so it's 250 would add up, but I agree that 1,000 is appropriate, but it continues on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Anybody got any other changes they want to make there? All right. Maximum building size. So we discussed this.
What happens next? What happens next? Excuse me, with this, with shore protection ordinance.
Chris is going to make the changes we talked about, send it out to us, and we'll bring it back the next meeting.
Okay,
Because I think we made a lot of changes. I think we want to take one more look at it.
so this will be on the agenda for the May meeting.
Yes. That would be
I
my
also make a request, now that we've done this like robust red line from all different versions. Can we get the proposed amended restated version that is free of all of the extraneous markings so we can kind of gut check it?
Yep, that was the intention, with the idea that at the next meeting, if you were so inclined, that you could actually set it for public hearing. So I will give you the ugly version as well as a clean version.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay. Anything else on that? All right, maximum building size. Do we want to go there or not, guys and gals?
Couple of questions, Bob.
Yep.
Number one, how did we arrive at 3,500 square feet?
I asked the building commissioner what he thought would be a good number.
And the second question is, what would it encompass? And where I'm going with this is, someone has a 3,400 square foot home, they want to build a 200 square foot addition. Would that be considered or defined as new construction for that property? And would that, within then the 3,500 square feet fall under that definition?
So they're at 3,400. They want to build a $200 square foot addition. The answer would have to be no. You need to go to the BZA if you want to do that.
Okay.
If this is what we want to do, I mean, there was some debate as to whether this is a good idea or not.
I'm opposed.
Yeah, I'm still of the opinion that a maximum building size is maybe a good idea, although I don't think we've done the research to determine whether the other requirements, like setback requirements, and the kind of ordinances that prevent building structures that monopolize a plot of property. I just don't think we've done the work, and I also think that 3,500 square feet is remarkably small for some of the lot sizes here. But again, I have volunteered to do the research, and I haven't done it. So I apologize for that.
Well, why don't we leave it on as an agenda item?
Well, is there really, do we have a consensus to leave it on as an agenda item?
I'm asking.
I've stated my position in the past, and I still take that position, that if you own a piece of property, you can build on it as long as you comply with the code. We have plenty of ordinances which deal with size, lot coverage, setbacks, height, all kinds of things. So as long as you comply with the size, I'm not going to tell you how many square feet you can have in your home. So I would prefer to drop this item.
I'd like to see Seth do some research, just because I'm confident that our town has height. We have different things, but then I see people do things and they get approval for it. And so I would like to see, Seth, without putting the onus on you, Seth, I'd like to see a little bit more research, maybe something that other towns have. I continue to see building just things kind of out of control with, and not just here, but yes, in terms of buying and adding and buying and building and tearing down, and a lot of that. And it concerns me, in spite of the fact that we have ordinances that cover some of these things. And if Seth is willing, I'd like to see just a little bit more research.
I agree with Mike. I would drop the topic.
I know there's a huge house on Belle Plaine, and it's probably on. I'm sure it's on a lot that it's appropriate for it. I guess the question is that what we want in town? I guess I don't have a strong opinion either way. So I'm.
Well, no. Here's the point, Bob. Mm-hmm. Things have been approved in this town which were wrong, and that's
absolutely.
Well, but I'm trusting that the building commission has to abide by the ordinances.
That's right.
To Anita's point, if someone doesn't want to abide by an ordinance, there's a BZA process for that.
Right.
But I think there are things we've seen in this town which just hey, go right ahead and do it. I don't know that for a fact, but so the property you're talking about there,
Mhm.
unless you guys approved it and it's not in accord with the ordinance,
No, I think we did. I think they have a number of lots and they were able to do that. I guess
well,
the
then
question
it
is,
complies with the ordinance.
it absolutely does.
Then end of story as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. So I guess we should take a vote. Do we want to leave it on the, let somebody make a motion.
I don't know, Seth, is this something that you're willing to take on to research, or do you feel it's just a point that, what will you find?
Well, I mean, I'd like to address the concerns of the town council. I don't think it's. I think intuitively, I think that the existing ordinances are probably sufficient, but I don't see harm in investigating it. I personally think 3,500 is small, but it's not my choice necessarily. I don't mind doing the investigation. I've just prioritized the shoreline protection ordinance and the solar protection, the solar ordinance over the building size. So, given the appropriate amount of time, I'm willing to do the work. But I'm not confident that it's going to prove any different than what kind of the opposers of investigating it are saying. I just don't know.
And there's no harm in taking it off. And at some point, Seth, you could, it takes the time constraint out, number one, and number two, it could be reintroduced if there's something that you find valid, and regardless, you could take care of those, right? So,
Yeah.
That's a clear thought, Chris.
Yeah.
So Bob, you asking for a motion?
Yeah, you might.
I'll make a motion to remove this building size, maximum building size, to remove it from the agenda.
We hear a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That's three of us. All opposed?
Nay.
Opposed.
Doug?
I was an aye. Sorry, I wasn't aggressive enough.
Nine. So that was to take it off? Aye,
I was
to take
aye.
it off. All right, so we'll take it off. But Seth, that doesn't mean you still can't do the research and bring it back if you want. And this did not come from the town council. This came from the building commission originally.
Okay.
To be clear, this maximum size is regardless of the number of lots you have or the size of your property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea is that the people who thought this was a good idea didn't want us to become a town of estates.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Okay, so anyway, it's taken off for now. Solar ordinance. Seth?
Yeah. Okay. So I've beat this little pony as long as I think I can. I think we need. I think we. There's just some input. There's some decisions that have to be made, and I think they're really more what route you want to go and what you want the city to look like within the kind of confines of what the Indiana legislature has said. And some of it's nitpicky. I think the biggest issue that I see right now, and I've done a fair amount of talking to Carl Kowalski and other kind of people who are solar system oriented, and it comes down to the concept of screening. Just to give you a little background, screening is requiring somebody to build some sort of structure or plant some sort of vegetation or use natural landmarks to block a solar structure. And that would come down to, like, the determination whether to do that would come down to A, whether you're allowed to under Indiana law. Two, is there some sort of size? Like, if somebody wants to build basically a house of solar protection structures, like, at what size do we say you have to block that from neighboring view? Or three, if it's visible from the street or if it's visible from a neighboring lot, do we want to require somebody to build some sort of screening just so that they don't have to look at somebody's solar panels that they don't like? Does that make sense? And so, I think that you can't make it unreasonable and you can't make it too costly under Indiana law if you're going to put some sort of solar protection screening ordinance in. But, like, where are we going to draw the line, and where do we have an interest in drawing the line in terms of requiring that somebody do some form of screening?
It obviously has to be practical. And I know the state legislature has a big interest in pushing communities to make it feasible for people to add these.
Right. I mean, you're allowed to place reasonable restrictions on the use of solar ordinances, and it's kind of a balancing act with the community. And I think we've established that Chris's initial view of using the existing kind of ordinances for people building solar structures in their yards or adding them to their house is probably the best way to go about this, because it has like at least the appearance of reasonableness, and it's also very logical. Right. And so that's what I've incorporated essentially into the ordinance. And I realize I'm not really giving you a new version of it. I can share, I can do a screen share if I need to. But what it comes down to at this point is the last kind of piece of the puzzle here is when and how do you require screening, and how much discretion do you leave to the building commission to require it? And I've
the only thing I again, and we don't want to be, Karl Kowalski specific, we've talked about that, but I mean, he mentioned that, so let's say he, his solar screening goes ahead, or his solar panels, and he needs to do some kind of screening, where I think he mentioned in one of our meetings that, his neighbors who he might potentially have to put up screens to block his solar, his neighbors built their patio up on his lot line, so he has to look at their tables and people and everything else. So I guess, I'm a little sensitive to that, how much does someone have to pay to screen that, when if my neighbor wants to put a hot tub on our lot line.
And you have to look at his hairy back, huh?
That's correct. Yes.
Well, let's not get confused here. To your point, Anita, there are setbacks, so you can't put a hot tub on the lot line, and if there's a patio up to the lot line of the person you're talking about, I'll look back and say, what building commission approved that?
And there probably was one.
Well,
or it was built without a permit.
The point is, there's not a hot tub at your lot line, and there's not a patio at your lot line.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, and so I did provide a revised ordinance to Bob and Chris today. I didn't circulate it, and they didn't circulate it, but I do feel like I've beaten this around enough that like y'all's input is necessary, and it's more of a policy decision that we're making at this point rather than a wordsmithing decision that we're making at this point. So I don't know how you want to go about this. Do you want me to do a screen share, or do we want to discuss it now and I can incorporate it and circulate it, 7 or so days before the next meeting? I just, I'm not the decision maker here. I'm the person who's proposing an ordinance. And then we collectively are the decision makers to propose to the town council who can make the decision.
Yeah. So you're saying nobody else had a chance to look at it but you, me, and Chris?
Yeah.
Send it to, I think that based on, in all fairness, and let's try to put it in a final form, because most of that is, Seth, all of the work that you did, and let's put it in a final form of what to propose, because at worst, you already have some screening language in there, right? And then if the collective thought is to take it out, but then, if it's closer to a final product before the next meeting, and they have plenty of time, maybe it's in shape to be set for a public hearing, much like the restatement of the shoreline protection ordinance too.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one isn't nearly as complex or lengthy as the other. So I think that in fact the basis of what you have and adding some code sites from the town of Long Beach, the town's code, I think that would be in a position for the rest of the APC to consider it.
I've just, at this point, I've rewritten the screening provision like 7 times, and it just keeps getting like less specific. So I'll just write kind of what I think is kind of a reasonable measure, and then we can discuss it. But other than that, it's mostly ready. It's mostly the same as it was last month. It just, we haven't added the sites yet, and I've played with the screening language a little bit. So there's probably not too much to report there.
Okay. So yeah, I think that sounds like a plan.
Okay, but I'll get something to Chris sooner than later so that we can make sure this is heard at the next meeting.
And the next one on my agenda is the Right-of-Way Ordinance. I'm not sure where I put my copy of that. I think it's over on the other side of the room.
Yeah, and we keep referring to that as an ordinance, and they're bullet points, right? I mean, they're discussion points, and whether we want to do something all-encompassing or change some of the things that are otherwise already in the code. So that is
as I reviewed those bullet points today in preparation for this meeting, I was struck that a lot of that overlaps with the tree ordinance, which the town council is going to hopefully pass next town council meeting. So maybe we should put this on hold until after that's passed, and we can look at those together to make sure that this ordinance doesn't duplicate a lot of that same language.
Good idea.
Does that sound okay, Chris? You good with that?
I'm okay with whatever we want to make sure the tree ordinance also meshes with the other several sections of the rights of way that are already referred there, right? As well as the overall, what we're trying to accomplish by the discussion at all.
Yep. So I think let's put this one off until that next meeting. We'll hopefully have that tree ordinance in front of us. Two people can review that, see how this meshes with that, these ideas. Does everybody have copies of those bullet points?
No, I do not.
I do not.
Yeah, Doug won't for sure, and I'm not certain if they ever made it to Mike. He's saying no, but I can send out what we've circulated previous. I'm setting myself up right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we want to let 2403 Lakeshore Drive become 2402 St. Lawrence? I think we did a little bit of research. There were properties on Lakeshore Drive that have changed to the Ridge Road, the one that runs behind there.
Yes.
And so that has happened. And actually, there's a property next door to this one that changed its address because it's got a road that runs behind it, and I think they've also changed their address. So I guess the question is, do we want to let them do that? The upside would be that they can have their packages delivered to their side door, so that the package thief would have a more difficult time getting their packages. Might create some confusion for ambulance, fire, and police. I'm not sure if there's any tax implications with that. If you have a Lakeshore Drive address, are your taxes higher, Chris? Do you know?
That part I don't know. The main question I was asked is whether that would affect the sewers, and it does not affect that.
Yep.
In what regard does it not affect that, Chris?
Because of the language of the agreement, and it is those that are adjoining or along Lakeshore Drive. So it's the property, not the address.
So it's the frontage on Lakeshore Drive. It's not the address. So irrespective of your front size of frontage, you're considered someone who will bear the cost for the capital cost for that sewer. So this St. Lawrence one, if he changes from LSD to St. Lawrence, he's still considered as Lakeshore Drive for all sewer charges and hookups and so forth.
Yes.
Same thing for, I guess then that obviously applies to, you guys referred to some other ones, Ridge Road and so forth. Those address changes would be dealt with the same way with respect to the sewer.
Yeah, now that does raise an interesting question because, and I forget which block it's at, but the building commission was asked, I forget how it came up. I think it was building commission, but there is a property, and I think it's maybe the 24 to 2600 block of Lakeshore Drive that owns a property that's well back from Lakeshore Drive, but they own a 10-foot strip of land between two adjoining properties that butt on the south side of Lakeshore Drive, and they actually have a driveway that they use to go up there. I I guess I wonder how that works with the sewer. Because that,
Well, according to what Chris said, as long as you have frontage,
Yeah.
then you're considered a lot for purposes of capital costs and for getting a hookup or whatever and so forth. Would that be right, Chris?
Based on what we're talking about, I am not 100% on that. Of the strip, because what the language of our agreement right now with the sanitary district says is properties along the north and south of Lakeshore Drive. So
Yeah.
as we're discussing, the pure language of it is that is property along, but there isn't anything that defines it somewhat, like, for instance, the stormwater ordinance that just went by. Those were not for everybody, right? Those were buildable lots. We made an exception in there that if all the lots were under common ownership, that they wouldn't be charged. For instance, if there's 3 lots, they don't get 3 charges. In this instance, how recent was that 10 strip, or the address for that property, Dr. LeMay? Because I'm not aware offhand.
I believe that's existed like that for a long time. I drove by there the other day just to take a look at it, and I forget what the circumstances were, why somebody asked me to look at it. But that is the geography.
Yeah, based on the language we're here, it says along. So that's what I would hang my hat on.
Okay.
So the same would go for what I first asked down, whatever that is, stop 29, stop 30, the addresses which were changed from Lakeshore Drive to Ridge Road.
Yes.
That would still be a property for purposes of the sewer.
Yep. Okay, so do we want to change this address?
I have no issues with it.
Well, we did raise one. I think we've clarified the sewer question, and someone raised the tax implications, real estate tax implications. Do we have an answer to that, Chris? You said you're not sure.
I don't. I haven't been asked that one, so I am not sure. I think that's an easy answer, and I can grab that information from the assessor's office, but I don't know. I'd be guessing at this point. I do not think that it does, but I don't know that definitively.
Well, Bob, did you say that 10-foot strip between 20 around stop 25 that's already been changed, or it's proposed to be changed?
No, Mike, I don't remember what the issue was. Why? I think, I'm thinking Bill DeFuniak asked me to look at it, and I'm trying to remember why it was an issue. It didn't relate to a address change.
Okay, well, I guess
I can't
where I was going with that is are all address changes mandated to come before the APC?
Yes.
Okay. So that's not been before the APC. So that was
No, it wasn't because of an address.
I don't remember changes on Lakeshore Drive down at 2930 being changed to Ridge Road.
Oh, that happened. I'm wanting to think 3-4 years ago.
Well, I've been on the APC for.
Yeah, I know we considered it.
Yeah, I guess my point is somebody needs to ascertain that no one else has the power to change addresses but the APC. The town clerk doesn't have that authority.
It is the APC, so.
Yeah, I'm not looking to go back.
Didn't we do this last month where they said that we were doing this in reverse order because somebody went to town council first, and now we're going to change that again?
No, it's always had to go to the APC.
No, I agree, but we didn't consider it last month because somebody took it to the town council first. They made him resubmit it. So we need to be pretty clear.
Actually, I think he went to the town. He went to the post office. That was the deal.
Right.
And we said, no, that's not what you do. You go to the APC.
Okay. All right.
So do we want to do the research on the taxes? I guess my concern is if this change lowers property taxes, then that hurts the town, right?
Well, it doesn't hurt the town. It hurts every other taxpayer in the town. The assessed valuation for the town is what it's going to be. It's how it gets allocated among the properties. If property A gets a lower tax assessment, all the other properties in the town pick up that difference. I mean, I think it's de minimis, but I guess unless there's some kind of rush here, and I don't sense that there is, I would say let Chris clarify what the assessor does. I mean, I would assume the assessor doesn't assess based on address, but I also could clearly see where the assessor would have some type of system which says, oh, wait a second, that's a sexy address. So that may impact value. So I guess I would rather we hold this. Chris has clarified the sewer situation. Let him clarify the real estate tax implications. And Bob, I think, what did you say? Public safety is not a concern?
Well, I guess my concern is it going to confuse ambulances or fire department? I mean, that's.
Well, should you talk to the fire chief, police chief about that?
I can do that.
At the end of the day, that would be one of the biggest concerns, right?
Yep, I'll talk to him. Okay, good idea. All right, so we'll hold off on that till next month. We have no public hearings. I'm not aware of any new business. Any public comment? Closing matters, our next meeting is 5/17. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Night, everybody. Thanks for your help.
Thank you, Bob.
Mm.
Right.